4. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so yesterday, or last week rather, we were learning about opening up barrels. And we said basically you cannot make an opening in the side of a barrel because that is considered a Pesach, that is considered an opening. And you're not allowed to make openings on Shabbos. That's could be Makabu Patish if you decide to make it in a nice way. Even if you don't make it in a nice way, even if it's only for taking out and not putting it in, it's still forbidden by rabbinic law. The exception was if you make it in the Megufa. If you make it in the Megufa, which is the top of the barrel, if you make it on the Megufa. That's what we said, that's the place to make it, rather than on the side. That is permissible. And we are continuing now with the Alter Rebbe, 15. On the barrel itself, it is forbidden to make a hole, even on the top. Even though it's not a normal place to make a hole. Because if that hole would be made for the purpose of going both in and out, it would be forbidden by Torah law, because the barrel itself is, you're basically making the barrel itself, as opposed to in the Megufa, which is not a complete part of the barrel, it's just something that's added to the barrel. So therefore, if you would do it for the purpose of going both in and out, it would be forbidden. Therefore, if it's only, even if it's only made to go out, it's forbidden even to do it on the top, even though that's not the normal place to make it.
What does mean asur midivre sofrim?
Neder Sofrim ze chachamim.
Sofrim ze?
Chachamim. Okay. Tezayin and Alter Rebbe, machatech hasaor, a person who cuts leather. Umakbid l'choytcha b'mida hatzricha loy, and he is particular to cut it according to the measure that he needs. For example, he cuts it to make straps and sandals. So he's cutting in a measured way. This is a av melacha, it's a primary type of melacha. Because in the Mishkan, they used to cut the skins of the elim and the tchashim, the rams and the tchashim, whatever they were. As you translate them, the meaning of the term tachash is a matter of question. And apparently the Talmud Yerushalmi identifies it as a kosher animal with only one horn. The Talmud Bavli, Shabbos 28a, identifies it as an animal with a multicolored hide. Others are identified as an aquatic creature, perhaps narwhal or the sea cow. Parshas Truma quotes an opinion that maintains it was a miraculous animal that was created specifically for that time and afterwards ceased to exist. All right, so we're talking either about a narwhal, sea cow, miraculous animal.
Okay. When he's cutting the size of the sandalim,
yeah,
this is av melacha.
If he's cutting the leather in order to make sandalim, he cuts it in a measured way, all right, a certain midah. That's an av melacha, correct?
And what's happened if he's cutting just not size, you know? It's also melacha too, right, Rabbi?
No.
Oh, are you allowed to do that?
According to the Alter Rebbe, cutting skin without a midah, and if you're not creating a keli, mutar lagamri.
Well, let's say he is really good with the hand. He can do midah without midah, just cut like that, and it's.
No, I didn't say midah without midah. I said without midah.
It's just, okay, if it's just without stam,
cutting. He's bored. Some people like cutting things. Yes. V'chol ha'machatech, izer davar tolosh. We're in Shin Yud Daled Tes Zayin. Chol ha'machatech izer davar tolosh. Any person who cuts anything that is tolosh, that is separated from the ground, umakpid lachoytchoy b'mida, and he is particular to cut it in a particular size, is a tulda of cutting in a measured way. So it doesn't have to be a soft item. Like, for example, we speak about korea. Korea is the opposite of tofer, which is sewing. Korea does not apply to hard objects. If you're chopping wood, you're not korea, that's not ripping. I mean, besides there's other issues that why wood might not be korea, we're going to see later. Tezayin, Shin Yudal and Tezayin. So the point is that when you do, when you break something hard, that's not korea, because korea is related to toifer. It's the opposite of toifer. Toifer is soft, beged, it's garments. So but machatech is not like that. Machatech could be any davar talosh, anything that's not connected to the ground, that you're cutting in a measured way, that is machatech. Going, for example, hakoitim rosh hanotza shehu dak. A person who cuts off the end of the feather, which is thin, verach, and soft. He wants to put the rest of the feather into his pillow, but he doesn't want the sharp point in his pillow. He doesn't want to lie down on a needle. So he cuts off, but he only cuts off so much. He wants as much of the feather that's soft as possible. So he just cuts off the exact amount that's sharp. Chayev. He is chayev if he does it purposefully. Because he is particular to cut it according to the proper measure. So to a person who files down the ends of beams, so that they should be equal and sharp. So basically he has beams that he wants to fit into a certain hole, right? He's going to fit them in. So they have to be the right measure. They have to be just so that they'll squeeze in. So that's a particular type of cutting, to get it down exactly to that measure. And that is all considered machatech.
And what about the notzot? If he's cutting a little bit extra, so he's not chayav. No mokpid.
A little bit extra is also chayav, because he's just a little bit extra. You understand what I'm saying?
No, we said if he's exactly in the pin, so he will not.
The point is that he is cutting in a measured way. Maybe it's not to the centimeter. Maybe it's not to the millimeter. It's just to the centimeter. But he's still cutting in a measured way.
This one, the notzot is chayav anyway.
No, if he doesn't pay any attention, he just cuts it down without paying any attention.
And not for the pillow.
No, even if he's making it for the pillow, but he's not particular where he cuts it. He cuts it anywhere in the pillow, whatever. So then it's not machatech.
If you want to take only the pin.
If he wants to take out the end, even if he doesn't take out exactly, he has a bit of extra. He's still cutting in a measured way. He's just not measuring so precisely. But he still wants it to be more or less that measure. Shalom Aleichem. Good to see you. Our Binyan from Meyer is hopefully taking shape. Okay, you said Michael is in town, yeah?
I just sound right.
Oh, excellent. Perfect.
So, לא התפללתי, כבודו לא התפלל. לא התפללת? Davin?
Shmuel Davin? Okay.
Ask the last one. Davin?
No.
Okay.
Michael or whoever else comes. Okay. It's a person who chops wood into pieces. If you are particular to cut them in a certain measure, you want the wood to fit into your fireplace. Or you want it to fit into the, you're making what is it called? A bonfire. So you want it to fit into the arrangement.
And this one is you have no choice. You got to get one like that. You put it like this, and you put the ox in the middle. You have no choice. Whatever is coming, boom, you broke.
No, I'm not talking about you. You have no choice. I'm talking about you have a choice, and you're choosing to do it in a certain measure.
This is like a log like this around. You chop it, and then you chop it for pieces. So this is a measurement. It's called.
If
right?
you're doing it in a measured way, you're making sure to do it in a certain measure. That is machatach.
Chayab.
If you're not, it's not. It's still uvdin dechol, by the way. This it says, actually. Concerning some types of breaking apart, it says that it's mutter. But particularly concerning chopping wood, even if you're not doing it in a measured way, and even if you are not, what else could it be? I can't think of anything else. So really, if you're not doing it in a measured way, there is no malacha.
You cannot make a fire on Shabbat anyway. So
I understand that. You're not making a keli. It's nothing. It's just a piece of wood. Nevertheless, it's uvdin dechol. It's uvdin dechol. Uvdin dechol is usually related to a malacha. It's an action that resembles a malacha, and therefore it's forbidden because it's uvdin dechol. So, for example, doing a permissible thing with a keli that is usually used in a forbidden way, or can be used in a forbidden way. So that's a classic example of uvdin dechol. We've had several examples where there's.
But I'm saying the Isser itself, it's rabbinic. I'm saying it's just a.
Rabbinic.
It's not Isser D'Rabbanan, but it's.
This is Rabbanon. What do you say it's not?
Isser D'Rabbanan.
It's Rabbanon. Shalom Aleichem. How are you? Okay.
Thank you.
Shkoyach, thank you. So yeah, this is Rabbanon.
Like Zera Chazal, not the.
Yeah.
Chazal mentioned it.
It's in the Gemara, sure, many times. Concerning different things, that's why it's hard to pin down exactly the meanings, exactly what they meant.
Examples.
Right, there are many examples, but it's hard to find what's the underlying concept. Okay, so the point is, even if he's not particular to cut them to a certain measure, but if he's doing very small pieces, wood chips, he's chai mishum tochen. Shin Yudalet Sif Tezayin. No. Chai mishum tochen. He is chayev for tochen. Okay, this is a concept that we haven't really gone into, but we will get to it in Mitzvah Shem and Shin Chaf Aleph. That if you cut a large piece of something into many small pieces, whether food or not food, that is considered tochen. Food, of course, is tochen. Like we know, when you take grain, you grind into flour, that is classic example of tochen. It could apply to other foods as well. We're going to see in Shin Chaf Aleph, maybe even cutting an Israeli salad, according to some, can be tochen.
So when you have a bread, you cut the pieces for everybody exactly size. So this is chayav too?
No. Bread is already cut. Bread is already tachon. Ein tchina achat tchina. You can crush matzah into matzah meal, not with an electric grinder, but with your hands or with your hammer or whatever. It's no problem. Binyan, shkoyach. Shlina's arrived.
No.
Okay, so the point is, actually, I thought you were asking something else. Maybe you were. What about machatach? What about cutting with a measured way? I mean, you cut the cake. The caterers, they cut the cake.
What you cut it?
Just so. They want the exact square cake.
The cake?
Yeah, or the bread, for that matter.
You said then tchina achat tchina.
No, that's as far as tochen is concerned. What about machatach? That's a separate malacha.
The bread also the same thing, Rabbi?
So?
You're using the mechanism, the thing that they use
for
to
food.
cut it. Those perfect.
So if you cut a cake,
What mechanism?
slices of cake.
What mechanism?
I've never-
Teichen does not do the mechanism. Teichen means when you cut something in a measured way. Sorry, not teichen. Mechatech, sorry.
I saw someone cut exactly pieces, a cake like this, and he cut it exactly.
Of course. What do the caterers do for the kiddushim on Shabbos lunch?
Yeah.
They cut it just so. They don't cut it the day before. It's going to dry out.
No.
They cut it just so.
So it's okay.
Most of them are going, probably, but nevertheless. I don't think mechatech applies to edible food. I don't think so. Although I cannot say that I came across that. Or mechatech. Oh, mechatech on foods. What do you know? I'm open to it. The malach of mechatech does not apply to foods because mechatech is part of the tanning process. As explained here, the malach of mamachik, none of the malachas of the tanning process are applicable to food. That's a chiddush. One may cut and measure pieces of fish, cake, challah, etc. on Shabbos. There you have it. What do you mean? Not allowed. Not allowed. Not allowed.
What was the question?
Not allowed. You cannot cut a watermelon in the shape of a bird on Shabbos.
Why not?
It's not allowed. You're making a sculpture.
What about stars?
I think if you're going to eat it, it's okay. If I'm not mistaken, if you're going to eat it, it's okay. But not if you're making it as a decoration that you're going to leave.
Is he making letters? Are you allowed to make letters?
If you want to serve it for eating, I believe it's okay. I believe it's okay.
Of course we serve it for eating, Rabbi, on Shabbat.
What do you mean? The kiddushim, they make all these fancy things. They leave it there. Nobody eats them.
No,
So they've made that before Shabbos.
Nobody touches them.
So the caterers have made that before
Presumably
Shabbos.
they made it before Shabbos, yeah.
But anything you eat, it's no problem. You can make a dinosaur.
Right, because it has a use on
So
I
Shabbos.
that's-
believe yes. I believe yes. I believe yes.
Even letters?
Same thing.
Let's say a person has these shape things that he's able to press down and make letters on the
Yeah,
watermelon.
cookie cutter. Yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. I don't have that clear in my head. Sorry?
If you did a watermelon shape of whatever, bird, whatever, and not planning to eat it, okay? Let's say you done it before even the Shabbos. It's going to consider it as muksa?
No, you're allowed to eat it. What do you mean? Edible.
Not going to eat it.
But if you want to, you can. It's not muktzah machmas chsar kis. It's not that expensive. It's not muktzah machmas mitzvah. Doesn't fall into any of the categories of muktzah. We don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. The machlokes in the Gemara between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Siman about muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda says anything you decide you're not going to eat is muktzah, whatever the reason. One second. We don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. We hold like Rabbi Siman. Rabbi Siman is much more limiting in terms of what is actually muktzah. Very limited definition. It has to be muktzah for a very specific reason. Like, for example, muktzah machmas sarn kiss. It's very expensive and you would never use it for anything else. But if you were not planning to use it, but it wasn't expensive, you just weren't planning to use it, you can change your mind. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. I sell esrogim, right? Not now, but Sukkot time. Etrogim. So Sukkot came, I had, a couple of boxes of esrogim left over. And in my mind, I had, of course, planned to sell them. But if on Yontif, or even on Shabbos of Sukkot, I would decide, you know what, I'm not selling them. Nobody's buying them. Let's make a salad. Let's make an esrog salad. B'vakasha. It's 100% mutter. Absolutely. We don't, according to Reb Shimon, we don't pass on like Rabbi Yehuda would say, no, you set it aside for schoira, for merchandise. Unless you decide before Shabbos, you can't change your mind.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
it
pass
would be
like Rabbi Yehuda.
impossible for it to be merchandise anymore if Shabbos.
No,
God came.
no, that's not true. I sold at least 10 esrogim on Sukkot.
You mean on Chol HaMoed?
Yeah, Chol HaMoed. Even on Yontif, I didn't sell it on Yontif, but I gave it to people who didn't get a chance to pick it up, and after whatever, they paid me back. Sorry? No. Once you use it, it's muktzah machmas mitzvah. That's forbidden. Muktzah machmas mitzvah we
They're
hold,
expensive etro.
but yeah.
remind me Ashpiz in the movie when they throw.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not the Mechanic Constructions, for example, I don't have my phone on me, but if a person would use his expensive phone, he usually would never use an expensive phone, let's say for a door stopper or to hold something up. But if it has like a good case, you mind if I use yours? But if it has a case that's not really good, like an OtterBox case, like I would hold the door with this. But
I use mine all
not for long term, but if I needed to hold the door with it, it's a pretty thick case.
I don't know.
It's subjective.
Why don't take a chair?
Exactly, it's subjective, it's a case by case
You
basis.
can take a chair, right?
I use mine for that purpose.
No pun intended.
I imagine that it is subjective. I think it's
Who put the
subjective.
phone on to hold the door?
I think it's
mine to hold
subjective.
the washing machine.
Yeah, but what
Probably
about
was 5 or 6 of them. I have insurance, I don't care.
Probably you have a couple phones at the house.
But I have a lot of
Yes, sir.
devices. It isn't destructive.
onions and different things like that?
My phone, it doesn't hold
Cut
anything.
it- cut it small.
You make
We're gonna
it-
see in Shilchov Gimel. It's machlokes. We're gonna
The
see.
vendor,
They own Otter.
same thing.
I just got them.
The eggs.
All right.
Life?
We continue, and we say, when the middle of 16, 3:14, 16, Tes Zayin. And a person who is chopping wood into big pieces, and he's not particular to cut them in a measured way. It's only also with Rabbanon Rafa.
If I saw the Rabbanan, we don't know how to do
If
that,
he's
Rabbi.
chopping wood and he's not doing it in a measure, and he's not doing it to small wood chips, so it's not machatech and it's not toichen, it's ma'aseh v'zilzal Shabbos. He doesn't say udin nechol. He says ma'aseh. I think it's the same. And zilzal Shabbos.
Rabbi, if it's only the Rabbanan,
One second. If ein behem mishum total muktzah, if it's not muktzah, for example, wood that is set aside for using and it's prepared for moving. In other words, wood is muktzah according to Reb Shimon too, because it simply is not a keli. It has no function. Like stones are muktzah, earth is muktzah. Anything that is a keli and has no is not a keli and has no function is muktzah. These pieces of wood are not muktzah because, for example, you set them aside to sit on them, to use as a paperweight. You have a use for them, so they're not muktzah. Nevertheless, it's also to chop them. Yes.
so if it's a muktzah, why?
I said it's not muktzah.
It's not muktzah.
אמרתי לו, יכול להיות,
But
יכול להיות.
if it's a sur the Rabbanan, we don't know how to do it.
We're not allowed to do it. No, we're not allowed to do it. But the question is it Suda Raita or Rabbanan? If he's doing it in a measured way, exactly, that's the Raita. Or if he's doing it into small chips, it's the Raita. If he's doing it into big pieces, then it's only the Rabbanan.
The Rabbanan. All this is you have to be a bechatat or anything to do.
If it would be the
Teshuvah.
Raita, he would have to bring a chatat or, whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought before I can go home and start to chop.
All right. Aval shar davar tolosh. Shein b'chatichosim mishum ma'aseh. Other disconnected things that cutting them is not considered ma'aseh. Mutter lachatchoy lachatchile. You're allowed to cut it in the first place. Kol she'en miskavan lachtich b'mida, as long as you're not cutting it in a measured way. You're not doing it to small pieces. And he's also not fixing a keli as he is cutting it. I'm sorry? Dak mode is very thin. What's the getter of thin, exactly?
For Shinaim.
For Shinaim is another problem. It's a tikkun kli. You're making a toothpick.
I mean, consider it done.
Putting cheese.
There's no machatach for food.
For the hot dog, for the hot dog,
It could be toichen, cheese, toichen.
the shiput for
No,
the
there's no toichen with cheese because it doesn't grow from the ground. Want to see?
Rabbi,
Want to
maybe
see?
for the shipud, for the small one. The shipud.
What do you mean for the shpud?
They put the hot dog. They put to stick with the hot dog. That stick.
You talking about corn? What do you mean?
That small.
Bow and arrow?
The duck. No,
Uh-huh.
it's called duck. No,
Shish
it's,
bow and arrow?
I don't know.
I've never come across a particular measure for toichen. I've never come across a particular measure for toichen. But since I do have the 39 malachas handy, and I don't have the one with toichen in it, I can't answer the question.
When we cut toilet paper that's already perforated, is that considered cutting it exact? Even though it's already kind of
Cutting toilet paper on perforated lines is a big problem. Big problem. I'll address that in a moment. I just
We
want to
talked about
see.
it, Rabbi. You make it before Shabbat and that's it.
No, I mean you just use the tissues. But
Unless
some
if
people,
you,
some
if
people
you,
think it's permissible.
we talked about that. If you're a nose, and shimui, but not on the line.
It's already cut.
It's not
Not
cut.
like you're
It's perforated. It's not cut.
It's cut while you're cutting.
You can use money.
Money?
Which means hundreds.
That's something that's like mixture that you can designate symptoms. You don't have to look at it. Use one.
Designated it.
No, it's just money. You mix it really down. You can designate non shells. But if it's something non shell, you just need paper.
He said the best thing to do, and got another piece of advice, would be to use it.
Mm.
Not tear it. Not to tear it, but use it to use it.
Mm.
Wouldn't want that, you know?
There's nice better than that.
Okay, so I'm just reading in Shin Chaf Aleph in terms of, because he says there's a shaila about cutting like Israeli salad, right? And Shabbos small because you're maybe doing machatech.
There's the new
The
devices,
chopper.
right? The green chopper things.
Right.
You put the Binyan and you go like this, and it's very thin.
Yeah.
Very small little
The
pieces.
squares.
Yeah.
Very small squares.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. So basically, he says,
Yeah.
there's no toichen by eggs. Toichen is not applied to edible things that don't grow from the ground.
So no, mushrooms are really okay.
Maybe,
No.
maybe, could be. But he says here to cut it, because it's machlokes, cut it before the meal and cut it a little bit bigger than usual. What is a little bit bigger than usual? So here you have a lot of opinions. Chazon Ish says a bit bigger than you would during the week. Shem Zalman says as long as you still have to chew it, it's not considered very small. I don't know of any hard food that you don't have to chew.
Tomatoes would be a good example. I could slide that in your throat.
Yeah, but it's not
What
usual.
about
You
quarters? Quarters are hard food. You don't really have to chew.
always want to chew it. I
Well,
mean.
I don't think anything in the world you're not going to chew.
Exactly. So I don't know
No,
what
but
it
what
means.
he's saying is that it's possible to be just swallowed.
I don't know. It's difficult.
Rabbi.
I don't know. Let me finish. Okay. The Orla Tzion says, as long as you're doing it bigger than usual, we said before, the Chazon Ish. But it's not very clear. The whole zot, at the end of the day, it's not very clear. Bigger than usual. But what's the getter? Like, for example, he brings here Nissen Karel, it says, if you're doing it big enough, she'ein lefakvek bekach, that is clearly big enough, then you don't only have to do it samach l'suda. If you're doing it a little bit bigger than usual, then you do it before the suda, because it's like a tziruf of two hater. It's before the suda, so it's like eating. It's the way of eating it. It's not the way of toichan. And also, it's a little bit bigger than usual. But if you do it a lot bigger than usual, then you can do it even earlier in the day. But they don't give clear definitions. Yeah.
We mentioned before a quarter. So if the kids doesn't like to eat the corn like that, you allowed to slide it like that for them?
Oh, you mean because it's into small pieces, you mean?
You're shaving it. You're not
Interesting,
really-
Shaila. Is that considered you cutting it into small pieces? When it's really already cut, you're just cutting off one side. You're not cutting off like a thing that's
The corn
totally
is,
connected.
the corn,
Yeah, you don't have
you
the
have to
cob.
chop all of them.
What?
No?
Why isn't it connected?
They're not connected to each other. They're connected to the husk, to the cob.
You never do-
You're cutting them off the cob. You're not cutting them from apart from each
You
other.
do many slivers. You can cut one side.
Yeah, that's okay. That's another shot.
Cuts.
It's another shot. I don't know. I don't know, my friends.
What if that's Russian?
What about it? What about it?
I mean, it's the Russian, like the corn. Isn't it the?
No.
No?
No, there you have feathers, and the sharp end of the feathers you don't want on your pillow, so you cut off the sharp end, and you're left with the soft part of the feather to put in your pillow.
So it'd be similar to the sharp end. This is just one end.
No, the corn, each corn is separate from each other. Anyway, you're talking about, that's machatich and this is tochen. They're totally separate issues. Machatich is to cut in a measured way. Tochen is to cut a big thing into small pieces. Shaila is the corn considered one big thing when each kernel is really separate except they're connected to the cob. That's a shaila. So separate from that, that's machatich, that you're cutting in a measured way. Okay. The bottom line is,
Rabbi, tomatoes to cut it, that's a problem too?
could be, machloket. We're going to see in Shin Chof Aleph.
If
Mitzvah
a
Shem.
person is doing it smaller than usual, then according to everyone,
Sorry?
if a person is doing it, except for Rosh Hashanah, if a person is doing smaller than usual, that's tough.
Still machlekes. If you do it right before you eat, some say it's just a way of eating. So sof kol sof, it's a machlekes. Who says it's the way of eating?
Who says you do it for sweets?
Some of the Rishonim. Forget it.
Over now,
Rash,
that's what
Rash.
they were discussing.
No, they are saying even samach l'suda, you should do it a little bit bigger than usual because that shita is a machlekes. So you're trying to get another header. Okay. Lefikach mutter lachtach kishrei hashpud shekorshe metlai oivat tzloim boy. V'chenev is melon shetofron mutter lachtach chut hatfir. So, Alter Rebbe says, therefore, it is permitted to cut the knots that tie a lamb or a fowl on a spit to unfasten them. And similarly, it is permitted to cut the stitches that are used to sew close a stuffed fowl. Right? You all enjoyed your stuffed turkey, presumably. Or maybe not. So the way they used to stuff things, I don't know how they do it nowadays. I haven't really seen this. But the way they used to stuff it is used to stuff it. And then they used to sew it up with a thread to hold everything in.
I feel like this too.
They still do that.
They still do that?
My mom did it when I was a kid.
Okay, good. So and then they would want to cut those threads to open everything up and cut it up and give it out. So, or for that matter, if you have a roast, exactly. Here it talks about a lamb or fowl tied with knots so that it's, hanging above whatever it's roasting on or whatever. You want to cut those knots open, cut those ropes that are holding it up, those twine or whatever it is. That's no problem. Why? You're not cutting in a measured way. You're not cutting into small pieces. So what are you doing? You're not making a keli. You're throwing out that rope or that thread.
But it's not considered a permanent knot. Like you're trying to undo a permanent
You're not
knot.
undoing it. You're cutting it. Big difference. It might be a permanent knot. It might be forbidden to untie, but you're not untying it. You're just cutting it. Exactly. Now, the Alter Rebbe does not address one of the possible malachas here, and that is korea. What about korea? Korea is to rip, as opposed to toifer, which is to sew. Korea is to rip. I'm sorry? You're not eating the knots, not eating the thread. So what? You can't do malacha to do food. I mean, you can't cook if you're going to eat it. I think we addressed this last time, did we? Yeah. We addressed it in Yud Beis, but I think we went over it very quickly. So I want to go back to Yud Beis and read it, and then we're going to explain this aspect of Korea, according to the Alter Rebbe. Yud Beis said, Korea Adam or Sha'al Pi HaChaves Shayayin. You're allowed to rip the skin, the leather that was put over the barrel of wine, or Shamashkar, the liquid Shalatzach Shabbos. And for the Shabbos needs, it's no worries. Breaking apart something that's disconnected from the ground is no problem. We're going to explain. As long as you're careful not to form a little spout out of it, because that would be a tikkun kelim. Okay, that is a tosefta, my friends. Korea Adam or Shal Pnei HaChaves is a tosefta. Alter Rebbe builds on this tosefta, and he comes to a new understanding of the definition of Korea. He doesn't explain that understanding till we get the Shin Mem. Let's see.
This was created by himself.
What was?
The over on top of the one.
And the thread. What's the difference? Also created. What do you mean? He took the thread and he sewed it in, and somebody made the thread. I mean, somebody took material, spun it, and made it into thread. So here's the Alter Rebbe in Shin Mem Yud Zayin, and he's talking about ripping apart something that is disconnected. Avol mishum korea ein iser. Whoever has Alter Rebbe can turn to Shin Mem Yud Zayin in the parentheses. Yeah, Siman Shin Mem. That's an interesting question. No. כן, אבל קצת יותר למטה, בסוגריים. Mishum Korea. There are different reasons for parentheses. Sometimes it's because he wasn't sure about it. Sometimes it's because he wanted to go over it, like in the next time around, in the next edit. Sometimes it's because it's like a chiddush. He's not quoting anybody, he's giving you his own chiddush. It seems that that's what this category falls into, because he's not actually telling you a new halacha. He's simply explaining the halacha that he said already. Al mishum Korea and Isser. As far as Korea, there is no Isser. Ela k'shekorea mafrid gufim rabim sheneschabru. Unless he is breaking apart different bodies that were connected. For example, if he is ripping apart a garment that is sewn of many threads, but paper, which is one piece, there is no korea involved in ripping it. And for this reason, you're allowed to rip open the leather that's on top of the wine barrel, which goes to Shinyudah like we saw before. Because the leather is one piece. And the Isser of Kriya is not shaykh to it, Ela Isser Achituch, but rather the Isser of cutting in a measured way, in Makot L'Chachamida, if he's particular to cut in a measured way. Here is a Chiddush, my friends. According to the Alter Rebbe, Koireya, which means ripping, is only forbidden if you're ripping apart things that were connected. Looking back to how Koireya happened in the Mishkan, because everything is based on the Mishkan. Koireya happened when they were making the curtains. So in the middle of making the curtains, let's say they realized, or even after they finished, they realized that there's a moth hole, because the moths didn't realize that it was a curtain from the Mishkan they were eating, a chutzpah. They didn't realize. What can you do? You have the hole there from the moth. So it's interesting, but the flies, they understood. The B'sar Beis HaMitbachim, they didn't touch. Why didn't the moths realize? I don't know. Maybe it never happened, but it could have happened. Anyway, I don't know. You have this moth hole. So we discussed this in the past. If you just would sew it back together, it's going to be uneven. So they would rip down to the bottom, rip out that bit, and then put it together and sew it up again. All the way from both sides, down the bottom, cut out that strip so that it could be even again, and then sew it again. That's why, by the way, it's only chayav if it's koreya amanas litva, if you're ripping for the sake of sewing. Otherwise, it's just a destructive act. So that's what it is, all based on the Mishkan. So just like in the Mishkan, what were they ripping? Something that was put together, different strands that were put together. So too, the Alter Rebbe holds, based on this Tosefta that you're allowed to rip the leather, that koreya only applies when you are ripping something that was made of different things put together and you're ripping them apart. Excuse me, but if it's just one piece, koreya does not apply.
What do we consider derech midah?
Derech midah is a measured way.
Yeah, but let's say example rolling for the toilet paper.
Toilet paper is an example of derech
One
midah.
second, if you're rolling on your hand, you don't know how much you cut, and then you rip it off.
So that's not derech midah.
You didn't measure.
That's not derech midah. Normally, when you cut 1, 2, 3 squares, that is derech midah, because you want a certain amount. You don't want to waste. So that is derech midah. But if you're right, if you cut just whatever, it's not derech midah. On the other hand, you are making a keli. When you cut toilet paper, you are making a usable keli. It becomes a usable item. It's only a one-use item. You're only going to use it once, but it becomes a usable item. That's a separate problem. There are multiple problems with cutting the toilet paper. Somebody just mentioned it before.
Tablecloth, sometimes come in a big roll.
Exactly. Both problems. If you're cutting it in a measured way, here to here, cut, that's a measured way. That's problem number one. 1 second, that's problem number one. Problem number two is that you're creating a functional tablecloth. You're making a kli, tikkun kli.
So koreya
You're not allowed to do it.
No,
So anything you're not allowed to do is very cannot do from it.
not an issa deraisa.
Actually, in the shul, the guy cut it.
I know the heter for. I honestly don't know the heter for it. And it's not even so expensive to buy the pre-cut ones. How much more expensive is it?
So basically, even the guy is not supposed to cut it.
I don't know a heter for it. I've seen it in so many shuls that I don't want to say there is no heter for it. But I don't know. It's a problem. The guy cutting, he's making a keli. Of course it's his job. He's working for you. He's working for you.
Even so, if you're going to fight over it, like,
Sorry?
let's go to the garbage.
But he's working for his benefit. He's not working for
Doesn't make a
you.
difference. Doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't have so much value for it.
That doesn't make a difference. No difference at all. If you make a toothpick, that's an issa deraisa. How often do you use a toothpick? I mean, you use it once, twice, you throw it out. No. Issa deraisa. Chopsticks, another big problem. What's the heter?
To do what?
To break apart those two chopsticks.
So,
They put them out at all these kiddushim.
Right.
I don't know the heter.
So even if the Jew helped him to roll it, and he...
I don't even think I don't use
chopsticks.
Shh, Messiah.
I didn't even.
Mamash helping it. Big problem.
Yeah, but you do it without thinking.
So there's
You
no
do something
heter
without
both sides.
thinking.
Based on-
I don't have that. I don't have any heter.
Based on what they're doing it,
I cannot.
just curious.
I do not feel responsible to find a heter for that. I'm not saying there's not one. I don't want to say about so many Jews that they're doing something wrong.
Why doesn't one find out if there's one?
Because I don't believe there is one. I don't believe I have to find out just because they do it. Why?
You're assuming that there is a heter.
I'm not assuming there is a heter.
So you're assuming that there's not a heter.
I'm assuming there's not a heter, but I don't want to say it absolutely because I don't want to lay blame on their doorstep so much. Question? No.
I can't see a heter with those terms.
You know, it's the same like toilet paper.
No,
Exactly.
It's perforated.
No, because
No, it's
you
not.
have-
It's not machatach. It's not machatach. You're not cutting in a measured way, but you're making a usable
Yeah, but
utensil.
you've got an alternate way of eating. If it was about food,
No, that doesn't make a difference. The fact that you could use something with toilet paper too, you could go to your
Right.
neighbor and get
you have to print that
tissues,
one, right?
but you're not. You're making it. The fact that you don't need it doesn't make it not that doesn't change the fact that you're making a kelim. Sorry?
Aren't they glued together? So wouldn't it be one item?
The chopsticks.
Are they
I
glued
think
together?
they're
Eight together.
they're made together. They're
I think they're
like
made together. I don't think
Stand.
they're
It's like a
just
stand.
separated.
When I break it, it breaks in all different weird shapes.
It doesn't make a difference. You're still making two separate things that you can now use. You can't use it before it's separated. Makav Vantage, exactly. Tikkun Keli.
For Korea, Aquapatish, Bonet, like all these things just by breaking this.
According to the Alter Rebbe, there is no kareya if it's never been broken before. Machatech, I don't think it is, because I don't think you're particular to cut it in a measured way. You just want to break it apart. Doesn't have to be
creating something
exact.
new, right?
Tikkun Kli, yes. But I don't think it's Machatech. I don't think it's
No,
Boiner.
no, I don't
Because
know.
by Kelim, if it's not a mice, it's a very simple binyan. Tikkun Kli, yes. Tikkun Kli doesn't have to be professional. Like Kelim. Makav Patish. It's a tool of Makav Patish.
If you're going to be ripping a toilet paper, the rest of that, it has to be corralled. Over here, since it's a measured way, that's the problem.
No. No. I didn't say it's Korea. And I'll tell you why it's not Korea, according to the Alter Rebbe at least. According to the Alter Rebbe, it's not Korea because it's like a paper. It's one thing. It's not two separate things that are put together and that you're now separating. Now the Mishnah Berurah has another sheet in Korea. We'll get to that in a minute. According to the Alter Rebbe, there's no Korea here. The issue is machatech if you're cutting in a measured way, and tikkun kli, even if you're not cutting in a measured way. So lemaisa,
Tikkun Kli is an Isudarais.
tikkun kli is l'oraisa.
So a person who's cutting in a measured way,
It's
even
two.
if he's not cutting on the lines, he's cutting in a measured way.
In a measured way is a problem.
So can you open it up?
And a shinoi with one Isudarais doesn't work.
A shina with one is l'oraisa, for the sake of Abrias, maybe yes. Maybe yes. I mean, we do find in Hilchas Muktzah, Shin Yud Beis, we find in some situations that they allow Muktzah, which is one Isidar Rabbanan, for Kavod Abrias. To use stones that are Muktzah to wipe oneself.
That's the same idea.
Yeah. There's only one Rabbanan, but Kavod Abrias is paramount.
Maybe there in Muktzah, they already made that exclusion.
Oh, you mean it's only Muktzah, not other things? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, in Isser Darabanan. Well, I don't know. How does Kavod Abrios work? Any Isser Darabanan you're allowed to.
I mean, obviously, you try to minimize. So let's say, for example, within the Isser Rabbanan, if you would cut it in a measured way, that would be another problem. So instead of cutting in a measured way, you cut in a non-measured way, plus with your teeth. So it's only a tikkun kli shaila. So at least you're minimizing that.
Conclude Because you're still technically making something, it's just not exactly what you were.
Right, exactly.
Not what you specifically needed. Let's say you needed 3 squares, instead it's 6.
Yeah, right. Well, you don't even pay attention to how much you're making. That's that's kind of the definition of it shouldn't be mechatech. You're not cutting it with any particular intent. You want something usable, but no particular measure. But like I said, if you use them cut, although it seems a bit not so user friendly, but that's the best way. Question? No. Okay. So here we go with the Mishnah Berurah. I'm not going to read it inside. I'm just going to tell you that the Mishnah Berurah quotes this Alter Rebbe and disagrees with him, because the Mishnah Berurah says that he found a Yerushalmi that says that there is korea with leather.
And Yerushalmi beats it to center for the
It's
Oh, he has to answer that question, and he answers it in a different way. Does a Yerushalmi defeat a Tosefta? I don't know the rule of that.
Isn't Tosefta Mishnah?
It is Mishnaic, yeah.
So there's no, that's always right.
Sorry?
Mishnah was way before about that.
So how does it argue on the Tosefta, you're saying?
The Tosefta would probably be Tanaitic along with the Mishnah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Bajir.
Right. So how does it argue on a Tosefta, if it's an argument? I don't know. It's a question. That is a question. But here's the thing. So I'll tell you how the Mishnah Berurah explains this Tosefta, and then I'll give you the Ktsos HaShulchan, which is the Bavram Chaim Noah, who defends the Alter Rebbe. The Mishnah Berurah says that korea is only chayev if you're cutting in a way that you're going to better both sides of what you're cutting.
Yeah.
Like in the Mishkan, where they cut because of that hole, and they then had the ability to use both sides in a better way. Whereas if you're cutting in a way that you're not using either side, or you're not using both sides, even if you're using one side, that's not going to be korea. So, for example, in the case of the Orshal Pnei HaChavos, you're really not using either side. You just want to get to the wine. You have no use for the skin per se, right? You're not making it into a spout. So you're not using it in a way to help you get the wine out. It's in the way, you're cutting it. So there you're not using either side. But even in a case where you might be using one side, for example, if you're cutting paper and you're making something out of that side, but the other side that you're leaving behind, you don't care about that. So that, he says, would not be korea midoraisa. Perhaps on Rabbanon, but not midoraisa. So that's the chiddush that the Mishnah Berurah says. Thank you.
Because that's their opponent, their machinery, and other things.
Well, you still have the issue of tikkun kli. But as far as korea, yeah, it's already done according to the Mishnah Berurah.
So korea on the toilet paper from Mishnah Berurah, you don't use the other side.
Actually, that's going to be a shaila. If you're planning to use the other side, it's still a siddharasa. Right, exactly. For the toilet paper, you're going to use this side, but you want to use the other side. Yeah, it does help. Because the other side you want to cut.
But it's not for immediate.
How are you going to get to it if you don't?
I didn't know you were going to come back.
When you use toilet paper, you need cut on both sides. So now I'm cutting this side, and I know the next piece is now going to be ready to cut and use also. You understand what I'm saying? If you would cut just one long piece, and you're just going to use that piece, you'll use different, whatever. So there, your taka, you don't care about the rest of it. Whoever uses it, use it. It's not my problem. But if you're planning to cut 3 pieces, when you cut the first one, that cut is helping you for the next one. So that, again, you do it with your teeth. Again, any malacha you do with your teeth is kalachayat, but it becomes an issue of kareh anyway. Yes.
Is there a better way to do it than put toilet paper in your mouth?
Pinkies, no?
Can you step on it?
Oh, yeah, maybe step on it.
What about pinky?
Kalachayad, is any unusual way? Maybe pinkies. I'm not sure. I don't know. Anything that's considered unusual. So, the K'tzais HaShulchan does us the favor of actually quoting the Yerushalmi. And after he quotes the Yerushalmi, you see, maybe it's not such a question of the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah. Dr. Rebbe said how the Mishnah Berurah just.
Yeah. Alter Rebbe says that we see from the Tosefta that you're allowed to rip the leather that's covering the barrel, that kareh does not apply to something that's made of one piece.
So they had a leather top to a barrel.
Exactly.
And since it was one piece, says the Tosefta, you're allowed to cut.
No, the Tosefta doesn't say why. The Tosefta just says you're allowed to rip it as long as you don't make a spout. Alter Rebbe explains why is it not kareh.
Rip it in half.
Yeah, just rip it open. As long as you don't cut it like in such a way that helps you like pour it out just so.
Someone I heard a long time ago, if you have a toilet paper, you can cut all the way to the hand. Is there something with that?
What?
When you have a toilet paper and you stuck, and if you cut, you continue all the way to the hand of the.
Oh, you just don't cut, you use the whole roll?
No.
It's a good idea, I never thought of that.
What's the question?
No.
He says just use the whole roll.
To cut
Every time?
That's what he's saying.
No,
that's not what he's
to
saying.
cut all
Your house.
when you cut all the roll. It's something with that one, or just.
I didn't know a minute time. You cut what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The whole roll?
Let's say you got half of the roll on the so you cut until you finish it.
Shabbat.
You don't do that.
No?
Okay. So it's mistaken, the guy.
Okay. Maybe you misunderstood what he said, but
Maybe.
How
Well,
about
love
which
shit.
sefer by Mishnah Berurah?
sorry?
Which sefer by
It's in Mishnah Berurah on Shin Mem,
Siman?
Seif Yud Gimel, Bir Halacha, Divrei HaMaschil. Give me a moment.
He has the
Yeah?
So could you cut the whole roll of toilet paper on Shabbos for no purpose?
What?
It's one piece that you're cutting without any reason.
What are you going to do with it?
You would then use it for a later purpose.
No, that's a purpose. That's a purpose. Please, that's a purpose.
Fun at the moment.
That's a purpose. Okay, Sif Yud Gimel, Bir Halacha Ein Shofar. Okay, so here's the Yerushalmi, my friends. Yerushalmi has, it's actually two versions of the teaching. The first version is, no, he just wanted to know where to look it up. I'm not going to read it inside. The Yerushalmi has two versions. First is Kriya bebegadim v'chituch ba'oros. Kriya applies to garments. Chituch applies to oros. Kriya bebegadim be'emtza. V'chituch ba'oros min hatzad. That's one version of the Yerushalmi. Kriya applies to clothing, specifically in the middle of them. And chituch, presumably that means machatach, applies to skin on the side. Now, so far, that's not a contradiction to the Alter Rebbe, because he said kriya applies to begadim. Ve'is to mechalfin, and some switch it around. They say kriya ba'oros. Kriya applies to oros, to skin.
Is it Gemara?
Gemara Yerushalmi.
Not a Mishnah or Brachot.
No, Yerushalmi, Gemara Yerushalmi. V'chituch begadim, and chituch applies to begadim. Kriya ba'oros be'ilein rekachya. Kriya applies to oros that are soft. The chituch bebegadim and chituch applies to begadim be'ilein levadya if they are felt. Levad is like a felt, like a pressed pressed garment. You know what I mean? It's not made of threads, it's just made of pressed material. Okay, so the Shulchan says two things. First of all, he says there's two versions of the Yerushalmi. Two lishnas, right? The first lishna says that kriya applies to clothing and chiduch applies to skin, which is exactly what the Alter Rebbe says. So you'll say, well, there's a lishna basra, and usually you go like lishna basra. If there's two, that is a rule, by the way. If you have one lishna and a second lishna, usually the halach is like the lishna basra. Usually, because that's how it stays. Like one opinion, second opinion, oh, that's the second opinion. That's how it says. Here, however, you have a tesefta that contradicts the lishna basra. So it's more likely that we stay with the lishna kama. That's one point.
Who says that?
This is like says Shulchan. So Shulchan is defending the Alter Rebbe. And then he says something else. It's almost funny just because it's so different than the way the Pshat, the Mishnah Berurah learns. See, the thing about the Yerushalmi is that it's not a developed Talmud. The Talmud Bavli has been poured over for centuries and commented on it, commentaries on the commentaries, on halachas, and that. The Talmud Yerushalmi is like very few mefarshim. Whatever, it wasn't known so much, and the halacha wasn't like it anyway when it argued with the Bavli, so it wasn't worked over so much. So he suggests a completely different pshat in the Yerushalmi. Completely different. Now, usually if you give a far out pshat in a Gemara, who are you? Somebody from 100 years ago, less, to come up with this far out pshat, but there's like three mefarshim in the Yerushalmi. So it's like mamish open. So he says, perhaps it doesn't mean kriya and chituch in terms of the definition of the avos malachos of kriya and chituch. Rather, it's telling you when you are over biyadayim and when you're over with a keli. Because kriya usually is with a hand. We had it about gedida and srita, yeah. So kriya is usually with the hands. Actually, in terms of kriya mamish, I mean for a mess so there it's there in some cases it has to be with the hand. It's not allowed to be with the keli. In some cases for a parent or whatever. So but chituch is usually with the keli. So the shaila is if you do something that's unusual, it's like kalach hayad, you're not going to be chayiv. So he says kriya bebegadim. Kriya is shayach by begadim because it's not considered abnormal to rip garments. The chiduch ba'oros, but oros, it's not usual to cut. I mean, to cut, it's too hard to cut. You need scissors or some other kind of implement. If you do it with your hands, that's not going to be chayiv because that's not the normal way. And then he explains kriya begadim be'emtza, that the kriya applies to the center of the garment where you can really grab hold of both sides and rip it, whereas on the side it wouldn't apply because it's very hard to rip off with your hands just on the side. You would have to use an implement for that, and if you don't, it's kalach hayad. And chituch boiros benatzah, when it comes to cutting with a knife, that you could do even on the side by oiros because you're using the implement. And some change it and they say, no, kriya ba'oros, it could apply also ba'oros. If they are soft, if they're soft, yeah, it's not impossible to rip it with your hands, and therefore you could be chayiv. And chituch bebegadim be'ilin levadya, when it comes to levet, which is felt, that's something hard. Felt is usually hard, like the cowboy hats. That's something hard. If you do it with your hands, you're not chayiv. For that, you would only be chayiv with the keli.
So wait, for the oils are got their habit.
Yeah.
Saying that the person kriya. Correct? He said correct. Okay.
It says correct.
So if you use a tool, if you use a scissor or a knife, it's going to be still mutar.
Alter Rebbe is saying that the word kareya here in the Yerushalmi is not referring to the malacha of kareya. It's explaining to you.
No, forget the Yerushalmi. The Korah, is it talking about it means that that's a big by hand?
No, doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. You could use a knife or whatever. Doesn't say that. The point is he's saying that when it says Korea is chayev, what he means is even if you do it with your hands, if it's soft, you'll be chayev. For what will you be chayev? For whatever malacha is applicable. If you're doing it in a measured way, you'll be chayev for machatech. If you're doing it in a way that's making a keli, you'll be chayev for making a keli. You understand what I'm saying? It's about the fact that it's normal as opposed to abnormal, but it's not about which malacha it is. Different malachas could apply depending on what you're doing. But as far as the concept of Korea, the malacha of Korea, that only applies to something that's made of different materials, like they did it in the Mishkan. By a parent. By a parent, you have to do it via dime. They start them off. They start them off with a knife because you can't really get through the edge of the garment without a knife. But they have to do a tefach with themselves, with their hands. Yeah. They start with the scissors, yeah.
Therapy?
Oh, therapy. You mean you're moving it unnecessarily?
Do you do shape?
Lay there.
A daughter too.
I'm laying there. Sorry?
Daughter too.
What?
Want to be dime for a parent?
Yeah, why not? No difference. Okay. So we continue and we say, we're going back to the Alter Rebbe. I think we finished Yud Zayin. And let's say what Yud Zayin is. I think Yud Zayin is, Yud Zayin is going back to the Machaber. Let's go back to the Machaber. Shin Yud Dalet, Yud Zayin. We're going back to the Machaber first, actually. Zayin. Choisomis shebeKeilim. The seals on Kelim. Kegoin Shida, Teva, Migdal. For example, the different types of boxes. Shakisu shalem kosher behem bechevel. Their covers are tied to them with a rope. Yachol lahatirei. You are able to undo the knot. Don't want the knot. Because that knot is not a permanent knot. And you can even cut that rope that's connecting it with a knife. Or you can undo the rope. You can undo it in order to open it.
Why is it not considered like a strung? Because it takes a lot of energy to cut the rope.
So when it comes to Kelim, in order to be chayev, it has to be a significant act of building or destroying. And a rope, it's not considered so strong. That's what it is. He actually spells it out. It's only because it's a rope or similar things that are not particularly strong. But if you have a lock, whether it's a wooden lock or a metal lock, you're not allowed to break it open. When it comes to Kelim, it is shayach. By Kelim, it is shayach to have absolute binyan and absolute steel. Meaning to say, if it's a strong item, even though it's a keli, like we said, if you put together, something that you need a umnus for, you need strength to do, expertise, that is chayiv. So to actually break a lock, that's a significant breaking. That is chayiv. So you have this box. You lost the key. You want to break it open by taking out the hinges. That's a problem. Because the hinges are usually put in a tight way, in a way that's not easy to take in and take out. So you want to break it open. That's a problem on Shabbos. That is stira.
Some of the hinges, they have a pin. You can take it like that, easy. Sometimes
It's usually tight.
it's usually
Usually
tight,
to
but
take it out is tight.
Sometimes I want to remove the door when I do a tile or something like that. The pin is coming like that.
Okay, well, when it comes to something that's connected to the ground, there even binyan and stira gerua is chayiv. It doesn't have to be tight. Anything connected to the ground, even simple things, is also even midaraisa. But if it's a hinge that's very easy to come in and out by a keli, it could be it is mutter midaraisa at least. But rabbanan it's aser because you may do it. You know what I'm saying? You may do it tight. But midaraisa, I think it would be mutter if it's loose. Okay, v'yesh matirim bazeh. Now, for the first time, the Machaber lets us in on a secret, which I told you all along, but the Machaber never expressly said it. Some permit this because some disagree with the whole concept of Binyan BeKeilim. This whole idea that we differentiate between a Binyan Gomer and a Binyan Garua and a Stira Gemur and a Stira Garua, that's all Tosfos. Rashi disagrees. Rashi says there is no such thing as Binyan BeKeilim no matter what. And I forget who else. I think, the Rambam, it's not clear what he holds, but there's other Rishonim that agree with Rashi, and they don't hold the whole thing. There is no Binyan, period.
Because the binyan is finished?
No, because Keilim is not a significant act of Binyan. According to Rashi and other Rishonim, Binyan only applies to karka, mechuba karka. It's not mechuba karka. The whole malacha of Binyan does not apply. Now Rashi still holds of tikkun keli, makam patish. That's all does apply, but there is no opposite of tikkun keli. Like I said many times, it's one of the malachas that has no opposite. The opposite of Binyan is tira. There is no shviras keli. That's the opposite of tikkun keli. So if you don't hold, let's say you hold like Rashi, you still can put the pin into the hinges because that's tikkun keli, but you can take it out of the hinges because there is no stira and there is no opposite of tikkun keli. You understand? And therefore the Machaber says, and therefore breaking open the locks of these boxes, some permitted and some forbidden. The ones that forbidden are the opinions of Tosis and everything we've been learning till now. The opinions that permitted, we just said, is that some don't hold the Binyan BeKeilim. You could be mater it through a goy, because what's the principle? What's the principle here? There's a principle here that we learned.
If we're allowed to do something, then you're allowed to get to the goal.
If some allow you to do it lechatchila, you can ask a guy to do it.
It's the only way.
That's a concept we learned before. If some allow you to do it lechatchila, so you can ask a guy to do it.
Like what?
I don't know about that.
I don't know why I thought we discussed that. You need to open up the beds. I don't know why I thought we discussed. Let's make a different example.
The problem is, I don't have an answer to this problem. But the problem is the Alter Rebbe said in Reish Nun Gimel, and in Reish Nun Daled, he repeated it again, I'm not going to be able to answer this contradiction because I don't know the answer right now. But there the Alter said you can ask a goy to do something that some allow only start bottom, exactly. So how does he answer that here? How does he answer that here? Let's see how the Alter Rebbe words this, and then we'll try to figure that out. Alter Rebbe says in Yud Zayin, "V'chein chaysomois shebeKeilim, kigoyin shida teva umigdal, sha'akisa shalem kosher ben mechevel." Nachnu achshav avarnu leShulchan Aruch HaRav. So too the seals of Keilim. Kigoyin shida teva umigdal, sha'akisa shalem kosher ben mechevel. For example, the covers of these boxes, chest, counter, or closet. Their covers are connected with a rope. You're allowed to cut the rope for the besaken, even with a knife, or to split it open. And to undo its braiding. Honestly, in 5 years since the last time I taught this, I still don't know what this means. How do you undo the braiding of a rope in such a way that you open the thing? I mean, a rope is braided, twisted. So if you undo the twisting, the rope just gets longer, but it's still connected. A rope. What does he mean?
The way it's tight can be like a clear. There's a way that you guys can be easy to untie.
Oh, you mean you'll pry it out, you'll get it open because there'll be more room.
It's been like
You just basically open the knot. The
It's
knot
not-
made in time will be clear. So
No,
you
you're
need
saying you're
to-
going to unravel the rope so there'll be room to open. It's not going to break, but there'll be room, there'll be space to get in. You'll make it longer. Is that what you mean?
It reminds me like the talit, the tzitz, how you do it. You roll it like this, and you have more room to put more, no?
A rope is tight, and you're going to undo it, so it's going to get longer. So you're going to have space to get in. Is that what you mean?
Okay.
Either one.
Rope is many different joints.
A certain knot, it's like a clear. Like let's say it would look like a kesher aniva. Okay?
But he's not saying to undo a knot. He's saying to undo the rope.
We say, as long as it's not kesher, a kesher הרשע אינו kesher של קיים.
Well, that's the next thing. That's the next thing. That's another thing. He's saying to unravel the rope is one thing. To undo the knot is something else. These are separate things. Anyway, but I hear what you're saying. You're going to unravel the rope so it's gonna get longer. You'll be able to get in. Okay. In order to open them, in order to get into them, to take out what's in them. And so, certainly you can untie the knot. It's not a permanent knot because it's made to open all the time. Even though the rope is made to connect the cover with the keli, and when you cut it or unravel it, you are breaking apart that connection. That is not stira. Because the rope is a weak connection. It's not so strong. And when you destroy it, Binyan you are destroying an inferior building. It's BeKeilim, there is no stira unless you're destroying a powerful building. Therefore, you can only break open or unravel a rope or a similar thing. But if it is a wooden lock, fastener he calls it, or a metal one, which are strong, you're not allowed to break them open or undo them if the mafteach was lost, if the key was lost. Because that is an absolute destruction which is forbidden by BeKeilim also. So too, you're not allowed to take out the hinges that are behind a box. I know how you say this. Shemacharm kisu atevim dafna me'acharayim. Shtech v'nyaseh b'chaim k'tarim sheb'shnei barzilin m'shulav mechad k'ur b'kisu v'echad k'ur b'doifin. V'dei ha'yaseh l'tk'ur b'shneim yacharim m'chubar m'shulav m'zeh m'zeh. Yaseh zeh resh echad av k'tzatz resh ha'sheni yesh b'neka v'techvin b'yaseh katan. Here the Alter Rebbe describes a hinge. The pegs that join the countertop to its rear wall. To explain, pegs are inserted into small holes into interlocking iron hinges, one of which was affixed to the countertop, and one is affixed to the rear wall. Inserting the peg into both of them joins them together and connects them with each other. The peg has one end that is somewhat thick, and on its other end has a hole into which is inserted a small bolt. All right, you got it? The hinges in those days, after you put the pin through the hinges, you put another little bolt to hold the hinge in place.
You put the pin and then you have a small clips.
So, believe exactly. So that is very strong connection, and to destroy that would be an Issur D'Oraisa according to.
You don't have to destroy it; you can remove it.
I'm saying even to remove it is considered destroying because it's a professional job to put it together. Exactly. Because they are attached powerfully. Whereas a steer gemur that is complete steer. The same thing applies if you want to remove the bands that surround a wooden barrel. They make a wooden barrel with wooden planks and the metal hoops around them that is made tight. Taking off those metal hoops, even though you're not actually breaking it, you're just taking it apart, but because it's made tight, that's considered a complete destruction.
It's a tough to remove it because it's stuck.
Exactly. No, because it's tight, it's strong. To undo a strong kind of building is even forbidden by BeKeilim.
I saw how they make it. You will not be able to remove it with the hand. Because it's a machine with the heat, they bend it on the wood.
I see.
And it's like
I see. No, that's one of the ways to know. That's one of the ways to know that it's a real binyan is if you need a keli to do it. If you need a keli, that shows that it's strong. Mikol Makom. Nevertheless, did I finish that? Yeah, I did. Nevertheless, through a guy you can be lenient.
Who is going to make this? Jewish cannot make that. How can he can do that?
Take apart. The guy should take apart on Shabbos.
Take it apart?
Take it apart, yeah. You have a box. You need it open. You lost the key. For a Jew to open it is a shaila of shvira BeKeilim. He's breaking a keli. But you can ask a guy to break it open for you.
Because some will allow to do that.
Because some say ain't steer BeKeilim, even a steer gemura. So you can rely on that opinion for the guy. Let's see.
That's a shvus to shvus?
No, it's not about a shvus to shvus. It's about the fact that some permit it in the first place. Rashi permits it in the first place. Oh, you know what? I remember now. Alter Rebbe in Shinyut Gimel, in Rishon Gimel, Rishon Daled, doesn't say you can't ask a goy. You can ask a goy to do something that some permit in the first place. He's talking about benefiting from an Isser. Benefiting from, you understand? Benefiting from an Isser. The Isser of benefiting from Ma'aseh Shabbos is D'Rabbanan. Yes? To not do the Malacha is D'Oraisa. To not benefit from the Malacha is D'Rabbanan. So if the Malacha was already done, and some permitted in the first place, so now the question is, can you benefit from it? That's only D'Rabbanan. A Jew. Any Jew. So then, some say that as long as some permitted in the first place, anybody can benefit. Because some permitted it in the first place, and now it's only Ma'aseh Shabbos, which is only D'Rabbanan, you can be mekel and rely on the opinion to benefit. Now, the Rebbe says, no, only if it's D'Rabbanan. it's a deraisa, then you can't benefit. I mean, he puts it in parentheses, he's not sure. But it's not clear if it's a deraisa. But he doesn't say that about a goy. A goy, even something that is an issa deraisa, according to some, according to the main halacha, but some permit it, you can ask a goy to do it. So thinking back to the soup, based on that, if a Jew heats up a soup on Shabbos,
So for it.
according to the Alter Rebbe, you can't eat it. I mean, the Rambam allows heating liquids. I'm talking about it in a permissible way, by the way. You know what I mean? Because even according to the Rambam, you have to follow conditions of Chazorah, right? If whatever, you can't do it in a normal way to cook, right? You can't do it in a way that's near kamavashal. Even if it's already cooked, you can't do it in a way that's near kamavashal.
So, right, we said kind of
Whatever, the different opinions about plata, blech, on top of an overturned pot. However you hold it, has to not near kamavashal. It has to not be near kamavashal. But if he did it already, so according to some poskim, yeah, another Jew can benefit from it. Because it's only an Issa D'Rabbanan now, even though it could have been an Issa D'Oraisa then. But the Alter Rebbe says no. Because it's a Shalom D'Oraisa, you can't rely on it even b'di'ev. But here, but you're asking another question. Can you ask, one second, can you ask him to heat it up? Maybe even Alter Rebbe agrees yes? Maybe yes. I mean, based on this, it would seem yes. Because here it's that's what it is. It's a Issa D'Oraisa according to Tosfos. Mutter Gomer, and that's the min halacha, right? That's what the Mechaber paskins, that's what the Alter Rebbe paskins, the Ramah, everybody. I mean, not everybody, the Gaon doesn't, but I'm saying in whom we've learned so far, everybody paskins like that. Nevertheless, Alter Rebbe is saying, but you could rely on Rashi to ask a goy.
What is who's another going to go like?
Rashi? I mean, usually they do, but here he brings a lot of Rishonim that disagree, and he learns Pshat of the Rambam also, like that. So, I'm sorry.
Isn't that the Rambam is only in case that the laws, Tzar, said holy?
That's if it's Aser, but what if it's Mutter? Rashi holds it's Mutter for a Jew. You can rely on Rashi for a Goy. Amir L'Nachri is only Mutter in the case of Tzar and Choyli, and even then only Shvus to Shvus if it's something that's Aser. But here Rashi holds it's Mutter. So we can rely on Rashi at least for a Goy.
And you can benefit.
We're asking the boy.
Yes, asking the Goy.
And anybody can benefit.
Why not? If you're allowed to ask him, you're allowed to benefit. The whole reason you can't benefit as a rule is because you might ask him. So if you're allowed to ask him, you can of course benefit.
Can you give an example? Can I ask a goy to pick my carrots out of the ground?
What?
I don't understand this.
Nobody allows it.
Okay, so somebody
Somebody has to allow it. An Orthodox rabbi has to allow it.
But what is it they allow? Is the asking part that's allowing, or that the Jew could do it himself asking?
If there is an opinion, a halachic opinion, that allows a Jew to do it, so even if we don't follow that opinion practically, you can ask a goy to do it.
That can be
I
any
need an
Rishon.
example. I don't understand.
I'll give you an example that Rabbi Heller was not happy that I used it. I don't even remember if I used it, but I asked him afterwards if I was allowed to use it. He wasn't happy with it. We had a situation, this is when I was working for the Shul in Bell Harbor many years ago. They had a situation where Shabbaton, caterers came late. It's an ongoing problem. And the food has to be heated. It's not in the warmer. It's already Shabbos. So, think of the details. Trying to think of the details.
That's because you don't hold that. You can put it in the warmer.
I don't remember the details. I don't remember the details, but here's the bottom line. 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 The heter was based on the opinion of the Brisker Rav. Going back to Reish Nun Gimel, we said that the Brisker Rav, when he came to Yerushalayim, he didn't use a blech. He didn't use a blech for his gas oven. The first Shabbos came to Yerushalayim, no blech. The whole uproar in Yerushalayim, this is the big Brisker Rav, no blech. What's going on here?
He didn't know.
Didn't know.
No, he didn't know that everyone else used it.
What he said was that the whole thing of a blech is for coals, because they die down, and you're going to heat them up. You're going to stoke them. Gas, I mean, it doesn't die down. Well, what's to stoke? That's how he understood it, the pashtus, like without even discussing it with anybody. That was clear to him. And then he realized everybody was like, wow, what's going on here? Okay, fine, the next Shabbos he already used it. But he himself held that it was okay. For the gas, for electricity, anything besides coals and wood chips, I mean, things that die down.
So it's a big open door, Rabbi?
It's
a big open door.
No, but I'm telling you, when I called Rabbi Heller about this shaila, which I wanted to give a heter based on that sack, basically there was no blech. I don't remember what the other issue was, dry, not dry, ben hashmash. I don't remember all the other issues. This particular issue was that there was no blech, and there needed to be a blech. I don't know why it was less than Machal ben Drusai. I don't remember. There needed to be a blech, there was no blech. But it wasn't a Jew, it was a guy. At least rely on the Brisker Rav for a guy. Rabbi Heller said no. Because that opinion is not mainstream halacha. It's like a little footnote on the side of a sefer somewhere. It was never incorporated into the mainstream of halacha.
I agree with
so
any Rishon is?
I don't know. Like here, I mean, everybody knows Shitas Rashi. It's brought in the Forshim. Everybody discusses it. But what if you have a Meiri that's not brought in the Poskim? It's a Rishon, but not all the Poskim had the Meiri. You only came to print later. I don't know. I don't know how it works.
Big enough for me.
It is a big enough for me.
Any one of those Poskim systems is there.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it. I don't know how it works.
If that would be the case,
if it would be
any Rishon any normal Rishon that I'm looking for his book, no one maybe there's mistakes or something. Any normal Rishon that everyone learns nowadays with books that are printed.
Yes.
You can learn the area on your own.
Yeah.
You can learn
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So a person who
Maybe.
sees that they're not doing something, you can ask them.
Maybe.
No, I'm not saying yes or no.
I don't know. It's possible.
If that's the case, it's a thing.
It is.
So, Rabbi,
And it's a reason that you have to learn all the Rishonim.
so the next Shabbat you put blach.
The whole thing was a
so he
last minute emergency. The next Shabbos he did. Yeah.
So he didn't need Teshuvah?
No, he didn't need Shuvah.
No, nothing.
He didn't hold that you needed one. He did it out of respect for the Yidden of Yerushalayim. But he didn't hold that you needed it. He held it was mutter.
Where he got that? What?
He was the Brisker Rav.
How many years ago?
How many years ago? Probably about 75 years ago, 80 years ago.
Oh, in our time.
Yeah.
Would he have held the same thing about a candle under a chafing dish?
I don't know. Candles died down. Candles died down.
Less than 100 is our.
Can you give an example of a region who says something that we follow it?
Yeah,
So you can ask
I need an example.
I think there was about to bring an example.
He passed away in 1959. Remember?
Second?
He passed away in 1959.
59.
It's less than 60 years ago.
then אני נולדתי שנה אחרי זה.
Okay. Examples. I don't know. Let's finish out there, but we're middle of the sif. Let's finish out there.
59.
All right, let's go. המקום הקודם די נוח ישלק, או בין בשביל פסח, אז בין בעשר הסוסים החשוקים, לפי שיש שם בין ימסתיר בקהילים, אפילו בין גם מסתיר גמור. וליום שמחת דלס שידותיו ומגלו בסגו בחויזק, וכן המעשה כלי של פרק מדם בחויזק חייב חטס, אלא בני שום מסכן כלי וחיים משומק ופתש. אבל כשסייסו דבר תקוע בחויזק, אפילו סייסו עם כלי של מגמרי, אם זה שום מסר כלל, אם הוא לצורך שבס. יש לספק על דברים לעניין אמיר לנוחה אם הוא לצורך שבס. Nevertheless, I'm going to read the English here. One may follow the leniency of having a non-Jew break open fasteners and remove hinges and bands. The rationale is that there are authorities who maintain that the forbidden labors of building and demolishing do not apply with regard to Kelim, even when is building or demolishing a structure in a complete sense. According to these authorities, our sage's statement that one is liable for a sin offering for putting the door of a chest counter or a closet in place and firmly inserting it, or for putting together a kli with moving parts and firmly inserting them, applies only because through these actions one is preparing a kli, tikkun kli. Thus, he's liable for forbidden later makam patish. However, one takes a part in it that it is firmly inserted, and when totally demolished and breaks it completely, there's no provision involved at all if the act is performed for one's Shabbos necessities. When we rely on their ruling with regards to instructing a non-Jew to perform such an activity, if it is for one's Shabbos necessities. Again, there is no opposite of tikkun keli, and according to this opinion, there is no stir BeKeilim at all. So therefore, l'tzoyrech Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe adds that in, l'tzoyrech Shabbos, it would be allowed for a Jew to do according to this opinion, and when we align that opinion, for a Goy to do it, l'tzoyrech Shabbos. What's the reason it has to be l'tzoyrech Shabbos? I'm just wondering. If there's no stir BeKeilim, and there's no opposite of tikkun kli, what's the tzar? Why do you need a tzar Shabbos? Like, what are you doing? Well, why? What's it? אנחנו גומרים. What do you say?
Maybe that's going to move to the possible.
To move it? No, he's breaking it open for you. He's breaking it open for you. My friends, we're finally coming to some halacha l'maisa tomorrow. Not that it hasn't been halacha l'maisa. We're learning a very important aspect of this siman that is going to relate to cans and jars and bottles and all that sort of thing. So,
How many more
just letting you know. I think we'll need 2 more. Tomorrow and Monday next week, Mr. Shem. All right. All the best, my friends.
Wait,
Ma'ariv, yes.
Sorry, that was only 2 more what?
I think only 2 more classes on Shin Yud Dalet on this section.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
מישהו רוצה
Good
להיות
night.
חזן? רוצה להיות חזן?